A former champion looks set to make their WWE return tonight, and Tony Khan reveals talks with this major free agent. But first, the conclusion of the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view last night would see Konosuke Takeshita cost the Elite the win against the Blackpool Combat Club in Anarchy in the Arena. This when he took Kenny Omega out with a huge knee, allowing Wheeler Yuta to capitalize. As we discussed in our video earlier today, Omega would then take to the mic after the show to tease that he has two friends outside of AEW that he could bring in to even the odds, with one of those names widely expected to be the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Kota Ibushi. Well, following the developments of last night's show, Kota would release a statement to Dark Puro sharing his thoughts on Takeshita following his attack on his Golden Lovers tag partner, and he would say, "I never thought he was that great. He is a made imitation of me. Also, he never respected me." The comments have only added fuel to the Kota Ibushi is all Elite rumor fire, although only time will tell how this plays out. But do you think Ibushi will be one of Kenny Omega's two friends from outside of AEW? And who do you think the other one will be? Let me know in the comments down below. And speaking of that main event, one of the participants, Bryan Danielson, would speak to the press after the show as part of the media scrum, where he would discuss his new role in the creative process of AEW. A recent report from Fightful Select revealed that Bryan Danielson will be contributing in creative for the new Collision brand, this according to sources familiar with the situation, something he would appear to confirm himself alongside a ton of praise for AEW president Tony Khan. And the American Dragon would say, "I love working with Tony and I love working in AEW. It's a lot of fun because sometimes, before I even got here, Tony and I would talk on the phone, sometimes for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we'd just be talking about things and wrestling and that sort of thing. I think we have similar ideas on wrestling, and sometimes he says things to me and I'm like, oh my god, that's a great idea, and we riff off each other really well. When we do it, it doesn't feel like work. When you love wrestling, stuff like that is fun." Something that's going to be interesting to monitor in the months ahead is how Collision and Dynamite will differ from one another, with Bryan Danielson's old school technical approach to wrestling perhaps leading the brand in that direction. Another wrestler that took part in the media scrum last night was new AEW TBS champion Chris Statlander, who won the title last night after a surprise appearance following Jade Cargill's last defense against Taya Valkyrie. Statlander has been out of action since August when she suffered from a torn ACL, not too long after suffering the same fate the year prior. When discussing how her recovery differed this time around, she would reveal that the second time was easier due to knowing what to expect, and she would say, "This time it was a lot easier of a journey, having gone through it before. Originally we thought it was an ACL and a meniscus tear, but it was just an ACL. What that means with recovery is that I was in my leg brace walking around 2 days after surgery, not on crutches. With the meniscus tear, you would not be able to do that. Mentally, I felt like the progress was a lot more upward trajectory. It was a lot easier because I had been through this, and I remember we thought maybe it was a hyperextension, and then I got the MRI, got the results, and I cried for about 3 hours. I told myself I did not want to go through this again. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I cried it out, got myself together and told myself I just have to come back from this. Not that it's a big deal, but if you want something and work hard for it, it will pay off." And before we get into some more AEW news, let's take a look at what happened at last night's other wrestling pay-per-view, NXT Battleground, where a new NXT Women's Champion was crowned. The show would see the vacant title on the line in the final of a recent tournament, with Lyra Valkyria taking on Tiffany Stratton. On the road to the final, Valkyria had defeated Kiana James and Cora Jade, while Stratton had overcome Gigi Dolan and Roxanne Perez to get to the final two. As for who came out on top, it was Tiffany Stratton that had enough on the night, hitting the prettiest moonsault ever for the 1-2-3. The title had been vacant since Indy Hartwell was forced to relinquish the championship in early May, which resulted in her 31-day reign becoming the shortest in the belt's long history. According to a report from Fightful Select, the new champion received a big ovation from her colleagues when she got backstage after the bout, with her continuing to impress with her recent performances as she picks up her first ever NXT belt. The main event of the show would see Carmelo Hayes put his NXT Championship on the line against former champion Bron Breakker, who was looking to win back his belt at the first time of asking with his newfound heel attitude. During the match, Bron's strength would just about save his opponent from disaster. This after a dive to the outside fell short of the mark, with Carmelo avoiding becoming seriously hurt. As for the match itself, Breakker would largely dominate the affair. However, Hayes would manage to stay alive long enough to catch the challenger with a nothing but net for the pinfall victory. Hayes has now made 2 defenses during his near 2-month-long reign, which started with a win over Bron Breakker at NXT Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania weekend, before later retaining in a match with Grayson Waller at Spring Break-In. Now let's go to a quick story ahead of tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, a show that could see an injured star make their return. Former NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa hasn't been seen in WWE since his September live event, before later revealing that he had underwent surgery on a hip labrum, with him seemingly at the end of his recovery period. According to Fightful Select, Ciampa is backstage at tonight's Raw show, and they would write, "We have confirmed that Tommaso Ciampa is in Albany, the site of tonight's WWE Raw. He's been recovering from hip surgery, an injury that bothered him since his NXT days." Whilst this isn't confirmation that he will be part of the show itself, it's certainly a strong indication that this could be the case, or at a minimum that he's edging closer to the road. It's also worth remembering that fans have picked up on teasers of a Ciampa return during segments with the Ways, Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Dexter Lumis, and Indy Hartwell. Right now, one of, if not the most known name on the free agency market is Bill Goldberg, whose contract expired earlier this year, 6 years after his WWE return. Since then, there's been a ton of speculation on what his future could hold, with him recently revealing that he plans on having a retirement match or tour at some stage in the near future. At last night's AEW Double or Nothing media scrum, Tony Khan would be asked if he's had any talks with Goldberg in recent months, something he confirmed has happened. With that said, Khan would refuse to disclose what was said in those talks and noted, "Yeah, I have talked to Bill. It wouldn't be that unusual. I've talked to Bill when he's not been under contract at times, and I have a good relationship with Bill. I have had a good conversation with him, but I've had a lot of great conversations with Bill. His family has done a lot of great things in Jacksonville. He's related to the Wolfson family, who built the Wolfson Children's Hospital in Jacksonville. Bill is a great former football star. I worked in football, and it's a big part of my life. We have a lot in common, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and I have a really good relationship with Bill. I like him a lot. As to what I've talked to him about, I would say that's just between the two of us. It was a good chat. I like Bill a lot. He's a great guy." Of course, this is far from confirmation that Goldberg will be all elite anytime soon, although the huge smile on Tony's face when asked the question could be telling in itself. With MJF feeling that he's running out of competition for the AEW World Championship, perhaps his childhood favourite wrestler could be next. But do you think we're going to see Bill Goldberg in an AEW arena in 2023? Let me know in the comments down below. And before you go, make sure you check out how AEW can change wrestling forever.